Good morning. This is the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for this Friday, June 2nd. Looking at fire potential impacts, nothing in the short term, but we do have concerns on Sunday with an approaching front that'll bring in winds probably in the 20 to 30 mile an hour range, but local gusts to 40 Sunday afternoon coming off the Sierra front, and humidity levels will be quite dry down near 10% or single digits. Grasses remain in various stage of curing, and live fuels are still moist, so we don't expect very large fires, but there could be a pickup in some fire activity, especially where there's a consistent amount of cheatgrass aligned with the wind. We'll keep an eye on that. Looking at precipitation the past 24 hours, we did have some light amounts brush across northern Nevada into parts of southern Utah, tickling the Arizona Strip, and especially up into Idaho. The first two shades are up to a quarter inch. The second blue shade is a quarter to a half inch of rain. Again, that's concentrated more into parts of southwestern Idaho, but also parts of south central Utah as well. It's got some wetting rains, maybe local pockets, a half inch to an inch of rain down south. Looking at fire activity, we did see some small fire activity, an acre or two where you see the smaller red circles. There were a couple dozen acres here outside, kind of not too far from Tonopah here in Nevada. Otherwise, we've had some recent fire activity, some couple of hundred to over 1,000 acres in some of the larger yellow circles. Observed precipitation the past 7 days, quite dry across Nevada and western Utah. Quite moist into south central Idaho. We look at the last 14 days, and you can see where we've stayed dry across western sections of the Great Basin all the way down south towards Las Vegas. Significant amounts of precipitation. The bluish and green shades you see there are a quarter to a half inch in locally higher pockets in some of the higher terrain of Utah and especially into Wyoming as well. So northern and eastern areas looking pretty good, but it's our western and southwestern areas that we do have some concerns as we're starting to dry out now into the early part of fire season. You can see that our ERC percentiles are fairly dry across our southern area, so that's something we want to keep in mind. It's still fairly moist central and northern sections, but all those ERCs, see those arrows pointing upwards, means those ERC levels are rising and gradually becoming a little bit more critical. Looking at our fuel conditions, 100-hour fuels in some locations in southeastern Nevada through here, our zone 17, you can see that the green line tickles the red line. So basically near record low levels of 100-hour fuels down near 4 or 3, so right down towards the 90th percentile. And a similar story for southwest Utah, down there at record levels around 4 on the 100-hour fuel. So where grasses are cured, 100-hour fuels are dry enough. We do have some concerns for the possibility of fire if we get enough wind in those areas. Here's a look at our satellite imagery with the upper level map superimposed. I see a ridge of high pressure to our east that's quite amplified, and that's amplifications due to the deepening low pressure here in the Gulf of Alaska, unusually strong. At the same time, we have a weak ridge of high pressure off the southern California coast that's arcing on in. In the short term, this high is going to be our weather maker with a shot of slightly warmer, drier conditions. But eventually, that's going to be pushed out by this low pressure. It's going to push on south, probably too far north to give us any significant precipitation, but you see the tight height lines through here in the yellow. That does mean increasing winds, concern for later this weekend. So with that, taking a look at the upper level map for later today, you can see that deep low just off the map in our northwest corner, and that high pressure ridge with dry air associated starting to build on in. Our significant fire potential outlooks still pretty moist in most areas, but starting to dry out in southern sections. Now, winds on the left-hand side, not too bad. Fairly light today, especially across Nevada. Nothing critical. Humidity, driest down south. Again, where they're in the single digits to low teens and even mid-teens into central sections of Nevada and Utah. Much more moist further north. Now, on Saturday, that high pressure ridge that builds in from southern California builds across the Great Basin. So we should see a warm-up and a drying process. And notice that down in southern Nevada, things are starting to get very dry pretty quickly, but there's a fine line between that and some of the moist conditions and green grasses and live fuel moistures that we have in the northern two-thirds of our geographic area. Looking at winds for tomorrow on the left, starting to pick up a little bit. That darker green shade you see there, winds 15 to 20 miles an hour. The oranges are 25 to 30, much lighter as you head further east into Utah. If you look at our humidity, again, quite dry, single-digit humidity across southern sections of Nevada, the Arizona Strip, and southern sections of Utah. And if we take a look to Sunday, notice that a piece of that upper low in near Alaska breaks off, in the tight height lines you see through here indicates increasing wind. Most of the moisture is staying up in Oregon, far northern areas of Idaho. Our significant fire potential on the left was starting to dry things out a little bit, went from green to yellow here across western portions of Nevada. And if we look at the winds, you can see where our concern is. These purplish shades indicate some winds of 30 to maybe even 40 miles per hour with gusts, and spreading up all the way into towards western Utah, where they can see some gusts of 30 to 35. In those areas, humidity levels anywhere from about 9 to 15%, so dry enough, and even though there's still some greenness in some of the grass and live fuel moisture, we've had a history of fires of a couple hundred acres if the winds are aligned well with the fuels and the canyons, and we do have that possibility on Sunday. I'll keep an eye on that. Precipitation-wise, other than skirting our far northern areas into the mountains of central Idaho with some light to moderate rain amounts, we stay dry across the Great Basin. And then looking down the road towards next week, Monday, go back to Monday, and high pressure builds off to our east. The winds should diminish a little bit, but we'll still see that drying trend starting to inch a little bit further to the north. On Tuesday, we're kind of in between high pressure to our south and east, and low pressure again well off to our northwest. So kind of staying status quo, but getting critically dry down in our southern areas, which is normal for this time of year. I'll look at Wednesday. Deeper low pressure from the Gulf of Alaska starting to approach. Clouds and showers across Oregon, Washington, but we'll start seeing that increasing wind along with the dryness across parts of the western Great Basin. And then going to Thursday, we'll have to watch this a little bit. Again, a similar pattern to what we expect on Sunday, where we get the wind from that low pressure area off the northwest Pacific coast, but most of the moisture skirts into Idaho. So these areas of western central Nevada in the lee of the Sierra and all the way down south towards our critically dry areas near Vegas will have to be monitored carefully, as well as parts of the Arizona Strip with that next system. Precipitation over the next 7 days, again, pretty dry across about 95% of our area. Again, just what occurs in the next few days up in the mountains of central Idaho. If we take a look at our 8 to 14 day outlook, takes us all the way through June 15th. Notice there's a signal for warmer than normal conditions across much of the Great Basin, especially our southern and central areas. A drier than normal signal, maybe skirting our area. Otherwise, normal precipitation maybe shading towards a little bit drier than normal. This concludes our briefing. Have a great day. Our next briefing will be coming up this Monday.